Good morning. Welcome to Live Impact News 9:01 here in the Live Impact studio. We've got a lot to get to today. We have Carlene here and we've got Chris here with our weather. So we're going to start with that. I know there's a lot of news going on, but I want to start with something I am nervous about.
We want to start with you.
Which is how cold it's going to get, Chris.
All right, well, how cold is too cold?
Cold. I mean,
bad.
below freezing is cold.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
bad news.
Oh. The coldest that we've been so far this season is 28 degrees twice.
Ew.
The coldest that we've been so far this year is 18 degrees. That was back in
Ew.
January.
Ooh.
The low I have for Monday is 17 degrees. So, yeah, I know it's boo worthy. I understand. Because think about that. And we also haven't been in the teens during the month of December since 2022. So it really just shows that this is an early cool down. Actually, 2022, I'm not sure if you remember this. I remember temperatures probably more than the most common person.
That makes
but,
sense.
we dropped down to the single digits. I believe it was the day before Christmas. And then we had back-to-back mornings that were either in the single digits or the teens. So luckily, we're not there. This is
Good.
going to be a brief cool down. I'm your Statmansky. Ba-ba-ba-da-bum. This is a random one. Sometimes we are splitting hairs here because nobody really measures the first 11 days of December, but I do. So through 11 days of December, we have officially checked those in the weather history books. We've averaged 40 degrees from our highs and lows. That officially is the 21st coldest first 11 days of December. And our high temperatures actually average more in the top 15 because it has been cold. We went 12 days in a row that it was 50 degrees or colder to end the month of November and begin for the first week plus of December. As far as our school closures, we don't have any closures. We only have some delays for the North Carolina high country because some snow that moved in last night, some black ice, and then also we have some additional snow that's moving through right now. Bannerell, dark. That means the camera's not working,
Dark.
so we will move on. It's this era primarily that we're going to stay north of as far as the snow is concerned, and we are cold enough that it would be snow. It does not need to be freezing at the surface for us to have snow. Sometimes you can have a strong enough snow above our heads that it can be actually as warm as 40 degrees for snow to actually come down. Doesn't mean that it's going to accumulate, but you could actually see some snow. So the areas that I think that are a concern for even just seeing snow, maybe quickly reducing visibilities, is north of that line, primarily in Alexander County, right here around Iredell County in the I-40 corridor, and then even over in Rowan County, so China Grove, Salisbury, naming a few, you're going to see that potential for some of that snow pushing through. Over the last several hours, we've been slowly seeing this band push in, and now it's going to start to push out. So by about 10 to 11 o'clock, we are going to be snow-free, and here I'll prove it to you. Our Futurecast was showing that slight chance for everything, and then by the afternoon, sunshine is even going to come out evolving. I did this yesterday. Today is December 12th, but of course there's always some sort of national day. Sometimes there's a dozen plus national days per given one. Today, the one that really stands out is National Gingerbread House Day. Anybody a good gingerbread houser?
Carlene hates
I have
gingerbread.
a controversial yet brave opinion. I think gingerbread is not good.
It's okay. That's
Okay,
it.
good. Okay, great. So we're all on the same page.
I-
It's fine.
Like I'll do it. I'll have it.
I also say during Thanksgiving and this time of year that pie is overrated, so I don't. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Depends on the pie, but yes.
It's true. I've had a good pie. It's just that people, I never have gone nuts for pie.
Same.
I feel like I settle for pie, and I feel it's the same thing
Like
for
a
gingerbread.
peach cobbler,
Yeah.
that's your girl Carlene. But
Yeah.
a pie, not my thing.
And the problem with gingerbread, and this is why I agree with you, because I have had when somebody is freshly baked gingerbread out of the oven, it's great. But the problem is it just starts getting really hard, like a
It's
Triscuit.
tough.
Yeah.
It is the construction material
Right.
of baked goods.
Yeah.
So,
It's great for construction. If
Yeah.
if you want, crafting.
Yeah, that's a
perfect.
very good point. So I guess, yeah, if you're building exterior walls out of a cookie, it might
Gingerbread
not be
would
the
be-
best. Yeah. But I have to give it to it because we did a story not too long ago about some of the professional gingerbread houses around town, and some of them are extraordinary.
Stunning.
I know.
Gorgeous.
I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I'm like,
once it's
hats off
built,
to you.
I
But
don't
do I
eat
want to
it.
eat it?
No.
Have you ever seen that show, Is It Cake?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, that's the
Brilliant.
best.
Brilliant show.
All right, I totally got us off the rails. Okay, but there's also National Poinsettia Day. I've also heard poinsettia. I don't know how to say it anymore.
I
It's poinsettia.
I think
do
poinsettia. Like a majority of the population says poinsettia, right?
Right.
That's what I think so. And it's also National Salesperson Day. So cheers to Upstairs here at WCNC. And then also other people like my friend Mike Clemens. Happy National Salesperson Day.
Shout out Mike.
Shout out to sales.
Woo!
You don't have an easy job.
Yeah. No, well, and you know, that is
No
high.
stuff.
That is
I do.
high stress.
Calling people who do not want to be called.
I can't even
bless
sell something for free. So, like, yeah, good for them. 50 degrees is going to be our high today. 51 was our high yesterday. We will have sunshine for the afternoon, but now we transition to the weekend. Listen up. Saturday is the day. Sunday,
medal.
yeah. Look at
Medal worthy.
We're about to be at the Olympics time. This was gold medal worthy. And
Saturday won
yeah.
already.
I've already said all week that this is going to be the pick of the week. We've been calling for 60 degrees since Tuesday.
Wow.
And it's also wall-to-wall sunshine. You don't even have a cloud in the sky. It's great. The winds aren't overly harsh. But then we transition to Sunday that got an arrow that's pointing down. So here's how Sunday is going to work. By midnight, so talking about minute 1 of Sunday, that's your high temperature. Temperatures will
No.
continue to cool down. We level out in the 40s, and then by the evening, we could have wind chills as cold as 20 degrees, and we could even have it as cold as the single digits about how we actually feel by the late evening. Thoughts, concerns?
Thank you for asking, because
Boo.
yes, I do have thoughts and concerns. We've talked a couple times. Every time it gets a little cold in here and I'm talking to Chris, I always go, remember when I was in Michigan? So I would work the morning show, and the worst part would be standing out there at 4 a.m. and the sun wouldn't come out till later, obviously, and it actually gets colder and colder because it's longer without the sun. And so that's what this is reminding me of. I'm getting flashbacks. I will be inside on
And
Sunday.
often, because I also worked in Michigan, they had Alberta Clipper systems, so those are almost mini cold fronts. So that's the main reason why you were cooling down, is because you see a division of the warm to the colder air, and that's what we have for this day, and that's the
But
problem.
we're not there. We're in Carolina. Why are we so cold?
Why are we so cold? Because of the polar vortex. That is a ribbon of air that moves around the poles that sometimes, picture a top that's spinning really fast.
Okay.
And if you tap it, it will start to wobble. So what we're dealing with is a wobble baby, wobble baby, wobble baby, wobble. And that allows for that little ribbon of air to move down, and it's only a brief one, and that's the reason why we're going to see it. So I think
Wow.
the way things are looking at is you're going to constantly see these little pulses. But the good news is when you're not having the wobble going into you, you're going to have the warmer air. Now, the Sunday problem is the wind gusts to about 30 miles per hour. And I'll break this down for you. Here are our wind chills. So I'll actually show you. This is 8 a.m. At 8 a.m., we could have wind chills as cold as 10 degrees in Boone, 36 right here around the Charlotte area. Now, the one silver lining is we should have a majority sunshine most of the day. It's just going to be cold and blustery. By about 2 o'clock, you're having freezing wind chills. 0 up in Jefferson and Ashe County, negatives in Boone. We roll tape. If you have any Sunday evening plans, like for instance, the Celebration of Lights in Kannapolis is one of my favorite things. But it's miserable when you go when it's really cold. I've gone when it's warm. I've gone when it's cold. When it is cold, you are just huddling around the little fire they give you, or maybe seeing multiple shows of the bears inside because it is so cold. So say if you're going on Sunday and the hours are 6 to 9, it's not going to feel pleasant because you're in an open field. It's when you're huddled around a building, you don't get the direct wind. The more open you are, the more wind you're going to get. So it feels like -10 at that point at 6 p.m., feeling like either side of 20 degrees by the early evening hours. But I think the coldest part that we're going to have is leading up to midnight, the second midnight, and that's where we're going to have our low temperature, feeling as cold as 10 degrees to even the single digits and 15 below around the Boone area. Now, the reason why it gets a little bit better is not because it's getting warmer, it's because the winds are less harsh. The temperature is still going to drop down to about 17 degrees, but at least it's not going to be as wind chilly. So here's another way to look at it, pretty much what I just showed you. The afternoon, which by the way, the National Weather Service actually has definitions for time periods. Morning is categorized as 6 to noon. Afternoon is noon to 6. And then 6 to midnight is the evening hours. By the evening, our actual air temperature will be 30, falling to 20, feeling like 20 to 10 degrees. That's going to be the coldest part, but the actual coldest air temperature is Monday morning. At that point, you're talking about the teens, feeling a little bit cooler. So it's just really at this point, the reason why we're going weather impact alert is just letting you know It's going to be cold. It's going to be the coldest that we've had. 17 degrees is what we have for a low. I had 16, so it's come up 1 degree, so huzzah. 18 degrees, it was the coldest we've been in 2025. That was back on January 22nd, and we've had 2 other days at 19. Regardless, we're smashing the coldest we've been so far this season, and this will be the 4th time that we're in the teens this year. Another note that I always like to mention, especially if you have an older home, if you are in an insulated apartment, don't worry about this, but it's the ones that have more of an open crawl space, not as much insulated pipes. You need to drip on Sunday night, because whenever temperatures are down, especially below 20 degrees, it's actually below 28 for 4 hours, you need to drip those faucets to get some movement going, because the stagnant water is going to have a better chance to freeze over. So it's especially on Sunday night to Monday and Monday night to Tuesday that you need to do this. And the other criteria that I have associated with that is, let me bring up this other graphic, sorry, is really when temperatures are below 20 degrees, insulated pipes can freeze within 6 hours. We are for sure going to have that, especially heading into Monday. So whenever you're using the superlative again, the coldest, that's where it's going to catch our attention a little bit more than it otherwise would. For the 10-day forecast, we'll start with the 7. We are only cooling down momentarily. We have the changing Sunday, the bottom on Monday morning, only reaching 38 degrees, which, by the way, was closer to our low this morning, so to put it in perspective, and yesterday morning. And then we're gradually stair-stepping back to about 60 degrees on Wednesday and Thursday. Now, this is the opposite of what a lot of people want. If they want it to be cold, Christmas is okay, because you can roast chestnuts and stay warm inside. But that... Yeah, but once we get closer to Christmas, we have a chance at actually the 60s again, because the first day of winter, by the way, is December 21st. That's when the Panthers are back in town, where they have a legitimate chance of clinching the playoffs for the first time since I don't remember when. And then we're going to stay in the 50s to 60s, really leading up to Christmas, where things are trending to be above normal. But the areas of red really stand out from all the rest. Luckily, this is kind of a quick little drop before we have a nice little recovery back to the normal and even above.
Okay, you mentioned it. And we're going to be honest here on Live Impact News. I'm a football fan, but do I pay attention to the Panthers exclusively? No. Julie Kay?
I'm scared to start asking questions. Now that things are getting interesting, I don't know what to say.
Nick Sturdivant, sleeping right now. He doesn't come until later. Our sports team, also sleeping.
Yep.
So you're the
So
most
it's you.
qualified person in this room
I got
to talk
this.
Panthers.
No
Go
problem.
ahead.
Okay.
Whee!
So first off, I said it here in the Impact Studio. I had said it over in our other studio for WCNC Charlotte that there was the conspiracy about a losing record followed by Ohio State winning a championship and J-Lo either getting a divorce or filing for a divorce. That all 2 times that has happened before, the Panthers have gone to the Super Bowl. So I call the
Hey.
Panthers going to the playoffs. And we've checked 2 of those boxes, losing record. We had the Ohio State Buckeyes win the championship, and J-Lo's dealing with some divorce for the 2nd time with Ben Affleck. So those 3 trifectas have indeed led to a chance. So is it in the atmosphere? Well, maybe. So as of right now, the Bucks lost.
Correct.
The Bucks losing brings them to 7-7. So that means right now, with even playing this week, the Panthers are a half-game lead in their division. So they control their own destiny. If they win this week, they're up 1 game. Now brings us to the 21st that I had. On December 21st, the Panthers host the Bucks. Bucks already lost this week.
Yes.
If they win this week and the Panthers win next week, the Panthers officially have home field advantage for the first round of the playoffs, hosting whoever is going to be. For the first time, we're going to have to look that up. So there's a legitimate chance. Realistically, the Panthers just need to beat the Bucks once, because they're going to play them twice, and 1 other game. So they're just 2 more wins away, 1 versus the Bucks, 1 versus somebody else, to win. That's right, to actually go to the playoffs.
But we have the Saints first.
We have the Saints first.
And they beat us.
They beat us, yeah, and they're on a roll. However, usually with these divisional teams, it's tough to beat them twice.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless you're really good and the other team's really bad. But my only thing, being honest with you, and Nick Sturdivant's more optimistic, you don't know what Panther team's going to show up.
Right.
They
Yeah.
literally upset the Rams, but then they
Right.
get upset by the Saints.
Saints, yeah.
So yeah, but they've had the bye week, so I think it's some really good chance. But
They're all rested up. Yeah.
they're in the driver's seat.
Right.
So I really hope that, because the worst thing you do is you can win out, but then you're waiting for a bunch of other people to lose.
Right.
All they need to do is win 2 more. I think they can do it. I think they're going to do it.
Great.
I did search because we were curious the last time they went to the playoffs, 2017. So
2017.
8 years.
Yeah, and I think Cam was on the team still at that
Yeah.
point. And Cam was the Cam that we all knew, Superman Cam.
Right.
Yeah, it's quite turnaround. I have to give it to Dave. He was known as the quarterback whisperer. Bryce Young, everyone insults him for his height. I think the biggest problem that he had was confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Think about at that age. Think about just graduating college, not even, and being put in front of millions to carry a team that is dying.
Well, I always think about, like, I mean, it's not exactly the same, but when it goes from, like, college to NFL, it's like you're playing with boys and now you're playing with men. Like, men.
And that's a lot of pressure
It's
to
a lot
be
of pressure, fresh out of school.
at the center of that team, too. It's just
Yeah.
like a lot of spotlight on you.
Yeah, and he didn't have a lot of help at that point, and it's confidence. I know me personally, if I don't have the confidence, I'm not going to be able to succeed in life. Confidence is such a big thing. But Bryce is starting to get more and more, and just like last year, they hit their stride at the end of the season. I think they're going to do it. It's crazy.
He needed to marinate.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes 24 to 2 years.
And everyone's so excited, too, in the
It's
city to
exciting.
have that home game on the 21st is going to be really helpful, I think, to have all that energy.
Yeah, and it's very cool that the Buck Panther matchup, the two of them are the last 4 games of the season, so it
Right.
really adds a lot. Where the last so week 18 is versus the Bucks, so it could come down to it. It could come down to the very last one, but I want us to take care of business the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
because that means we do one in Nolans, and then we do one at home, and then at that point you just can kind of
home
coast.
free.
Home free.
All right.
All right.
That'll
Okay,
be
we're calling
exciting.
it the going to the playoffs, maybe Super Bowl. We'll see.
Maybe.
One step at a time.
Yeah, one step. Sorry.
One step at a time. You got to keep our expectations, in check.
Okay, I'm just saying. 3
You're
boxes.
Let's get through Monday's weather
Okay.
first, and then we will see from
Okay,
there.
let's
Let me see how I
get
feel
through
after that.
Nolans, Monday's
Nolans.
weather, and then we'll focus on
We'll
the next one.
reevaluate next Friday. We'll be back
Exactly. I'll be back.
with some more thoughts.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Of course,
Always
pleasure.
appreciate you. We're going to take a quick break, I think. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. Julie Kay here with Miss Carlene Bragg. We got a lot to get to today beyond just our forecast that we just saw with Chris. Of course, as we talked about at the end there, the Panthers are gearing up for a potential run for the playoffs. So lots to pay attention to there in the sports realm. We've also got a lot of breaking news that we've been following over the last couple days. But something that we want to get to is just the conversation about crime recently. I was there yesterday with the FBI press conference announcing new federal charges against the man accused of this most recent stabbing on the light rail. Of course, the first one being the murder of Irina Zarutska in August. That has been a large conversation in general in Charlotte about public safety. This all happening, of course, at the same time as us getting a new police chief. So, new police chief, CMPD Chief Estella Patterson, has been in office for about a week now, and our Colin Mayfield got a chance to sit down with her, talk about all of these big talking points, public safety, the light rail, all the big questions that we have, especially as we look towards this change in leadership.
Well, Chief Patterson, I know who you are, so we won't start there, but we'll just jump right in because I know you don't have too much time. So, we have seen a recent survey of Charlotteans saying that they want their police force to be more proactive, right? And it seems like, speaking to that, you have that task force ready for the holiday season. I think you realize, things that happen around this time of the year.
Right.
What other things are you thinking about, or how else do you think that this department can be proactive under your tenure?
Well, yeah, being proactive is super important to me. I want people to see. I want our officers to be visible out front and people see that. So, of course, we're doing our special operation that we're doing around the Christmas season, and that's going to continue. We already have some operations that we do with our Crown Initiative in the Uptown area, as well as our Entertainment District Unit. We have our crime reduction units. They're always out doing a lot of proactive work. We're going to continue to do that, and as we staff up our department, we'll continue to do that and enlarge those units, because it is very important to me that members of the community see our officers and that they see them out and about. And we do walking beats, we do bicycle patrols in our communities, in our neighborhoods. The more we can do that, the better it is for everybody within the neighborhoods and the community.
Well said. Speaking of your officers, right, you made a point even on day one talking about the health and wellness, not even of just of your officers, right, public affairs team, any civilians that work for you in general.
Right.
Talk about how you're thinking about that and putting them first. Not saying that Chief Johnny Jennings didn't do that, but it seems like that's been something you've specified since day one.
Yes, and that really comes out of a survey while I was going through the chief's process, where employees just felt that they were tired, they were overworked, they were stretched, and that comes directly because of our staffing numbers. So like I said, we really have to work on getting those numbers up, but also to making sure that we have things available for them. We have, a mental health unit, psychologist, those kinds of things. We have a therapy doc. Those are wonderful, but also to making sure that employees have a voice, because when employees feel that they're part of processes, where they're part of solutions, then they feel they're really a part of the team and they're willing to do more for the organization. So I really want to hit the ground with hearing from our employees. I'm going to take a listen, learn, lead approach, where I listen to what they have to say about what's most important. What should we be focusing on as an organization? Where should we put our resources? And then from there, I'm going to challenge them to say, okay, you've come up with these challenges, you've told me some things, where do we go from there? I want you to be a part of the solution. That way we get buy-in, right? And they're invested in the outcomes. So it is important to me that our employees are heard and that they're seen and that they know that I will be out there with them doing whatever it is. I've always been the kind of leader who leads from the front. I want to be a part of what they're doing, and that they know that I'm there for them if they need anything.
Love that. Changes. You probably can't go along the list of things that you want to get done right now, but if you can, what changes from a 30,000-foot view are you thinking about, whether it's within the department, maybe outside, things that you see that that need to be taken care of? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, some of the changes, I'm not coming in to make sweeping changes. I want to come in and assess and see where there are gaps and then try to fill those gaps. But I know for sure one of the things I want to do is just introduce more technology. Want to be able to work smarter, and bringing in technology that enables to have more eyes and ears to mitigate crime. It's always about making the community safe. You know, when you start talking about technology, sometimes people think it's because you want to target them, Big Brother's watching, that kind of thing. For me, it's not about that. It's about how do we make sure that individuals are not victimized. So I want to use technology to help us in that area. Also, too, I want to really work extensively on expanding our units, making sure that, like, our detectives, for instance, have enough of them to be able to build strong cases that are prosecutable, so that we can put those offenders, you know, work with our DA's office to make sure that justice is served and those offenders don't get back out. It is critically important to make sure that our units are staffed appropriately. Our training unit, make sure our officers are trained, fully trained, that they have the opportunities to train. A lot of times, because we're running from call to call and we're short, we just don't get that training that we want to get in. So I really wanted to expand that. I think that is really important. And I will say that, you know, under Chief Jennings, the foundation was set. The department was doing a lot of great work. We had some technology, but I just looked to bring a little bit more in and to make sure that, you know, we are doing everything we can with the resources that we have.
Okay. Two last things, then I'll open the floor and see if you want to elaborate on anything. You know, I got to jump into this. You talked about crime. I do host, and we did have, you know, Sheriff McFadden on, right? We host the streaming platform, and we talked to some of the Republican representatives across, whether it's GOP, from the chairman from Mecklenburg County. There's been claims thrown out there, right, about local law enforcement not working with federal agents. I know that Sheriff McFadden has his view, so we won't speak for him, but I just want to talk to you a little bit about what you're seeing, right? We saw the immigration operation about 2 weeks ago, the fear that it instilled in our community, I think for everyone, not just certain parts. And then, you know, you do have these, obviously this incident on the light rail once again, right? How do you go about not only serving the overall eclectic makeup of Charlotte, but also adhering to what the other side is calling, you know, you to do? And again, there are opinions all around, so I don't want to necessarily talk about that, but how are you trying to kind of mire your way through all of this?
Yeah, well, I will tell you, fundamentally, our mission is to protect and serve. That's what the police does, right? We make our community safe, and that's what we want to do. Everyone has their individual tasks, functions, and mission. We know that some of the federal agencies, ICE, Border Patrol, and such, they have a specific mission. I know that when they have to do the job that they do it. For us, we don't enforce immigration laws. That is not our duty. That is not our mission, and we want our residents to know that live in this community. When it comes to working with our federal partners, we have a history of working with them, right? We work with our U.S. Attorney's Office, we work with the DEA, FBI, ALE, all those, HSI, and we have wonderful relationships because we are taking violent criminals off the street. When our other partners from other agencies are they want to do that, we will work with them in those areas. If there's an operation where they want to remove a very dangerous felon or a criminal from the streets, we will stay within our boundaries of our job, but we will also support them in that if they're trying to get violent criminals off the street. So it's very clear what our roles are. They don't overlap when it comes to ICE and Border Patrol and that kind of thing. And so we just need to just all focus on what our mission is and just doing our jobs.
Yeah. In relation to the light rail safety, it seems like also you've been kind of proactive in that you know, response as well. And I know that you have to work with City Council and CATS as well. What does that look like in terms of how you would beef up safety? I mean, you can't probably station an officer on every single platform, let's be realistic, or every train car.
Right.
It is an open system, right? That's something I think the mayor is looking at. In other bigger cities, we know it's closed, but do you have any thoughts of how to make that safer for folks to ride transit around Charlotte?
Well, you know, CATS is working on that, and certainly they have, you know, they're exploring technology and all these various things. I really am not equipped to talk about that because I don't know exactly, because I'm not part of the transit system.
Yeah.
What I can say from a police perspective, though, is just having an increase of officers, I think, is good, so that people see those personnel, and then working with private security. We should be working together, not separate, in doing that, and that does make a difference. You hit the nail on the head. You cannot, and the public has to know this, we cannot staff and put somebody in every single train. It's just not feasible. It's not sustainable. It's not something that we can do. But what we can do is use technology. We can try to mitigate as much as possible by having roving patrols going through and talking with passengers. And when you see someone that's disruptive, when when you see somebody that might be intoxicated, if somebody doesn't have their fare card, or they are banned from the system, that we act on that we don't allow that person to continue to ride the train or violate the law in any way.
Well said. Thanks for fielding that. Last thing is, I think it's important, and I think that, by you opening up your door, by allowing us to come, you are making this a priority to have a relationship with the media, right? What are your thoughts on having like an open dialogue? There's been a lot of discussion, I think, in recent 10 years, and in other cities, right, having a transparent police agency that not only is able to give information, right, but also, to their defense, make sure that they keep the information intact to do the investigation. How do you see, under your however many years you're here, utilizing the media's help in that way? Is that something that you...
Yes, I'm committed to transparency. I believe that when we work together, we get a better outcome, a better result. We get information out to the public that they need. For me, it's about responsible journalism, making sure that we put context to the information and that we are providing factual information to the public. When we can't provide it, when I can't give you something, I'm going to tell you that we can't talk about that or we can't disclose it. But when we can, I will. I will make sure that you get it. That has been my history. If you go back and look when I was in Raleigh, I was very out front. Anytime we had an officer-involved shooting, I would petition the release of the body-worn camera. I believe that the public has a right to know that, good, bad, or indifferent, we would do it.
All right, we're breaking into this interview for just a second. We'll come back to it because South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson is setting up to speak about a drug trafficking arrest. So we're going to get to that happening live right now.
Testing, is there a problem? Check. It's real quiet? Okay. Yeah, I figured. That's happened before, and I don't know why, because I don't change the settings from one news conference to the next, so they should stay the same. Check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Check, check. Okay, Caroline, you good?
Yeah, just super quiet.
Okay. Check, check, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Mic check, mic check, mic check. Test, test, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
So we're expecting to hear
Test,
from
1, 2.
not just the South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson, but also the SLED Chief Mark Keel and some law enforcement officers having some issues with the video there. I believe they're checking out their microphone and making sure it's working. So while they figure that out, we're going to take a quick break, but know that we're coming back to this in about 2 minutes. Welcome back to the Live Impact Studio. It is 9:36, and as you can see from this clip, we are live with this press conference with Attorney General Alan Wilson out of South Carolina, where they're announcing a drug trafficking bust. So, hoping to get some more information. It seems to be a pretty big operation, given how many people are in this room.
Okay. All right. Are we ready? Happy Friday, everybody. Good morning. It's great to be with you today. I'm honored to be standing up here with a number of law enforcement agencies that were involved in a pretty robust operation that was primarily here in the Midlands, but obviously supplemented by operations around the state to bust various vape shops and warehouses that were basically peddling illegal products around the state of South Carolina. On December 9th, a state grand jury operation known as Ganjapreneur, Ganja and entrepreneur put together, in case you're wondering what that means, Ganjapreneur was conducted. It resulted in 40 narcotics charges against 12 defendants. What's interesting is this was a months-long coordinated operation involving the state grand jury, the Attorney General's office, but most importantly, our lead state agencies, the State Law Enforcement Division, obviously also co-led by our federal partner, the Drug Enforcement Administration. There were about 10 law enforcement agencies that were involved in the Midlands operation, but about 30 other agencies were involved statewide at various other areas of the state. I would like to identify some of the people who are here today who played a role in this operation, then we'll talk a little bit about the particulars of the operation. Again, these operations are local, state, and federal coordinated. That means there's a lot of moving parts going on in here. So I want to give a special thanks to State Law Enforcement Division Chief Mark Keel, who is my right hand in law enforcement. I hope he feels the same about me, but without him and the folks at SLED, we couldn't do our jobs, and I want to thank him, and you'll be hearing from him literally in just a moment. I want to thank DEA Assistant Special Agent in Charge Michael Tooley, who you will also hear from. Obviously, within our own state grand jury division, we have a lot of men and women, support staff and attorneys working, but principally our two primary folks on this case were Creighton Waters and Jennifer McKellar, along with their support staff. Homeland Security Investigations is another ally and partner of ours. We had the Union County Sheriff's Department. I know Sheriff Jeff Bailey was helpful. Max Dorsey, Chester County Sheriff's Office. Elgin Police Sergeant Aaron Threat is here today. Surfside Beach Police Chief Bill Mickle. Camden Police Chief Jack Rushing, my dear friend from over many years. Columbia Police Chief Skip Holbrook. Berkeley County Sheriff's Office Captain Christopher Dirks. Aiken County Sheriff's Office Major Jason Griffin. North Charleston Police Department Chief Al Kakler, excuse me if I mispronounced that. Myrtle Beach Police Assistant Chief Chris Smith and Lieutenant Ryan Mendala, Spartanburg County Sheriff's Office Captain Philip Wilkie and Lieutenant Joe Ferris, and Tunkhannock Police Major James Patterson. Again, Lexington, Richland, our National Guard partners, the Columbia PD, the airport, the FBI, HSI, even East Baton Rouge District Attorney's Office was involved. This is a multi-layered operation that was conducted this past week on December the 9th. What you have here, and there should be scrolling pictures of what was seized, and you can see on the monitors here around the room. And there should be copies of these products that have been provided to you. That were things that were seized as part of this operation. I omitted a couple of people also. I want to go back. I do have my hometown sheriff, Jay Kuhn, who was here. Jay is standing up here. We also have Solicitor Kevin Brackett, someone I work very closely with. And then, of course, Representative Chris Wooten, who has been a major leader in the legislature on trying to pass laws that address this very issue. On December 9th, I told you we had 40 narcotics charges against 12 defendants. This operation involved the serving of search warrants on 6 residences, 6 warehouses, 2 storage units, 1 vape shop, principally here in Richland and Lexington County. We seized about 8 U-Hauls, which is the 26-foot long U-Hauls, 8 U-Hauls worth of product totaling about 30,000 pounds. This is marijuana, pre-rolled marijuana, cigarettes, vapes, oils, dabs, serps, things of that nature. These products These raids, these operations were not conducted and targeted against retail stores who were unknowingly and unwittingly selling something that they did not know was illegal. This operation targeted basically drug trafficking operations that were selling products that had been marketed with the express purpose of giving people the perception that these products are not only safe, but they are approved by the DEA. In fact, I think some of the packaging even says DEA approved. To my knowledge, the DEA is not in the business of approving weed. So these things are actually stamped on the packaging. You can look at some of the packages. You got Obi-Wan Kenobi, you got Stonios, you got these they look like Skittles, they look like Oreos, they look like gummy bears. These things are marketed with the specific intention of marketing to minors. There are dozens of vape shops around Fort Jackson and other military installations. They're marketing towards soldiers. I mean, there's a national security component to this. So this is a very robust operation. These people were knowingly selling something that they knew was illegal here in South Carolina with the intent of profiting from it, and they were targeting minor children. I want to say again how incredibly grateful I am to the people who were able to show up here today and the many, many more who are around the state of South Carolina who are not with us here today. But this is not just about weed. This is about protecting our children because this stuff is intentionally being marketed to children around South Carolina. In fact, you can see the DEA approved packaging right up there on the screen. This is what they do. The bad guys are basically, they've gone from actually selling bricks of marijuana to basically selling products that have been designed to cover up the fact that you're basically buying straight up marijuana. And it's being marketed to children. So with that being said, I want to offer an opportunity to Chief Keel to come up here and address what his agency did in this operation. And I want to thank Chief Keel again for his long ongoing partnership.
Thank you, General. I first want to second what the General said with regards to our law enforcement partners. None of what we do is ever successful without the help of our law enforcement partners. And we are very fortunate here in South Carolina that we have great relationships. We get together and we get things done, and that's what's happened in this case. I also want to thank the media for being here this morning to cover this important matter. I want to thank all the SLED agents and personnel, all the federal agents, deputies, local police officers who have worked for months to make this case. On Tuesday, December 9th, as the General has said, federal, state, and local law enforcement served 13 search warrants here in Richland, Lexington County, 6 on residents, 6 in warehouses. We arrested 12 of the 14 targets in this investigation, and of those 14 targets, 12 were foreign nationals. Simultaneously, law enforcement officers and our law enforcement partners around the state served additional search warrants and arrest warrants. All of these warrants were related to illegal distribution and trafficking of marijuana and THC products into and around South Carolina. I've been sounding the alarm about the dangers of marijuana and THC products since South Carolina first introduced legislation back in 2014. And as I have stated many times, we don't know the unintended consequences of passage of legislation such as that. I've also stated many times that those who traffic this drug don't care about the people that they're trying to traffic it to. They don't care who it's sold to. They don't care about the quality of the product, and they don't care about the impact of THC products on our citizens, and especially our most vulnerable, our children. They only care about one thing, and that's money. And I'm going to say it again. That's the only thing they care about is money. Money that is laundered overseas to further additional criminal enterprises. This is not only a threat to our citizens, but is also a homeland security threat as well. Across South Carolina, these THC products have been illegally trafficked into this state and through a complex distribution scheme distributed to vape shops and convenience stores to be sold to anyone who wants them. They are regularly marketed directly to our kids with tragic results. No one knows what's in these products. They're unregulated, they're untested, they're illicit, and they're THC products. This investigation sought high-level suppliers with direct supply and distribution chains. These suppliers sought to peddle these products to anyone who would buy them, but in turn, they were directly profiting off of our citizens and our children, and it's unconscionable. Today, I want to make it clear, we in law enforcement in South Carolina stand united in our effort to rid our state of these dangerous and illicit products. And at this point, I want to introduce Assistant Special Agent in Charge Mike Tooley with the DEA.
Morning. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Michael Tooley, and I'm Assistant Special Agent in Charge with the United States Drug Enforcement Administration. I want to begin today by thanking Attorney General Wilson and his office for putting this press conference together and bringing you all here to hear about this important topic, but also for his office's support of this investigation with Jen McKellar and Creighton Waters. I would also like to thank Chief Keel and the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division for their close collaboration, as this investigation would not have been possible without their continued support and their partnership. Staying with us today on this stage are chiefs and sheriffs from across the state who have been on the front lines listening to concerned parents, educators, and community groups about the dangers of unregulated THC and synthetic products that are being sold and marketed as illegal products in gas stations and vape shops across the state and across the country. Each person up here can tell their own story of someone in their jurisdiction who has fallen victim to the dangers of these products and this poison that is plaguing our system and our society. We are all here today as a unified front to stand up to our most vulnerable and valuable asset, which is our children. We're here to try to educate the parents and the community on the dangers of these illegal and unregulated products, but to also send a very clear message to anyone selling, facilitating, or making money off of these products that what you're doing is a crime, and we will utilize every resource available to us to bring you to justice. DEA remains committed to enforcing federal drug statutes to include the illegal distribution of unregulated synthetic substances that the federal government has deemed as drugs and chemicals of concern. This is a whole-of-government approach to a very dangerous situation that is negatively impacting the health of Americans, especially teenagers, college-age students, and members of the United States military. Illicit marijuana continues to be the most commonly used illicit drug in the United States. And since marijuana potency studies started in 1995, potency has increased from approximately 4% to 16% in 2022. THC levels of many of the products sold throughout the state of South Carolina, such as dabs or edibles, are oftentimes much higher, reaching potency levels as high as 90%, thus further putting our children at greater risks of accidental poisonings due to the attractive and misleading packaging of these products. The Department of Justice has found that Chinese companies are making billions of dollars by pushing these dangerous chemicals into our communities, preying on our youth and corrupting the minds of hardworking Americans. Nationally, DEA has seen members of Chinese and Asian transnational organized crime groups controlling the illicit marijuana market across the United States. Many of those products shipped across the United States and into the state of South Carolina. Proceeds from these operations are then repatriated back to mainland China through sophisticated money laundering schemes involving the Chinese underground banking system. Chinese-run marijuana operations in the United States currently are producing the most potent form of marijuana with an average THC content of 25 to 30%, compared to the national average of domestically grown marijuana is 16%. Many of the illegal products being sold around the state are deliberately marketed to mislead members of the community, including military service members. Alarmingly, there are approximately 50 vape and smoke shops within a 5-mile radius of 3 of the larger military installations in South Carolina, highlighting a deliberate attempt by these organizations to target and impair U.S. service members. This jeopardizes their health, careers, and operational readiness. The military relies on its members to be of sound mind, capable of performing their duties with clear judgment and physical ability, and counterfeit and illicit substances can trigger positive drug tests, cause unexpected impairment, lead to medical emergencies, and lead to addiction and substance abuse problems. These consequences ripple through entire units and undermine the strength of our armed forces. Targeting military personnel for profit is not only irresponsible, but also a direct threat to the safety and security of our nation. The DEA and our partners will not tolerate criminal networks that endanger our military members and their mission to protect this country. As you spoke about earlier, simultaneous to this enforcement operation detailed by the Attorney General, DEA and SLED partnered with our law enforcement counterparts across the state to send a very clear message to anyone involved in the distribution of these.
All right, you've been listening in to that press conference out of Columbia, South Carolina, with Attorney General Alan Wilson and multiple law enforcement officials announcing that major drug bust operation. We are going to take a quick break, but as I've mentioned before, lots to get to. You saw those snowy conditions at Beech Mountain. We're also following historic flooding out of Washington State near Seattle. You saw that image just a moment ago. So we're going to come back to all these stories that we're following in just about 2 minutes. Welcome back to Live Impact News. It is nearly 10 o'clock here in the Live Impact studio. Something I wanted to mention real quick, something we're following out of Minnesota, a critical incident at Stewartville High School and Middle School. Now, we don't know yet what that means. We do know that the Facebook post made by the district says that there's no active threat to students, staff, or the public, and we know that the sheriff's office is already on scene, them posting as well that information. They're going to communicate more when that info is available. Now, that is kind of out there, and so we have a station in Minneapolis that is on their way to the scene now. It is going to take a little bit, but know that we are going to get some updates as soon as they arrive, hopefully in the next couple hours. So we'll come back to that scene when we get a live picture and when we get some more info. For now, heading back to that press conference out of South Carolina with Attorney General Alan Wilson and law enforcement officials on this drug bust.
That needed to be done. And I think it's very important to make it clear that it's not, quote, just weed. Okay? We're not talking about the Mexican dirt weed that maybe somebody smoked behind a bleacher in high school 30 years ago. As you heard from ASAC Tooley, the potency of these products has increased exponentially. But beyond that, not only is the potency very, very high, and I can also tell you anecdotally, and I have a lot of friends in the psychiatric industry that work in our local hospitals, and they say to me, they say, Creighton, you keep talking about fentanyl and you keep talking about meth, but the problems that we're seeing is always cannabinoids. Okay, because of the high potency of these particular products that we're talking about. These products are illegal and they are very intoxicating. The other thing I want to talk about is that people need to understand, and you can look at the images behind me and the way that these things are marketed. No longer can people hide behind the idea that just because it's sold in a store or just because the package says it's supposedly tested or DEA certified, which is patently absurd, that this is a legal product. Look at how these are marketed. They are made to resemble candy, cookies, and things like that. But if you look on them, you can see the cartoon characters. They're clearly intoxicated. They're clearly high. No one who's selling these products can claim that they didn't know that these are meant to be intoxicated. People don't pay $70 a gram for potpourri. All right? If they're coming in your store and paying this kind of money that are weighed out just like drugs are, they're not buying it for potpourri. They're buying it because they are intoxicated and they are intoxicants and they get people high. And we are seeing these prevalent more and more to children. The General mentioned a little bit about the national security aspect and did ASEC Thule. And what we see, as we do with fentanyl and other drugs, is that many of the precursors for these intoxicants come in from China. The administration has currently identified the cartels as a foreign terrorist organization. And we also have seen nationwide prevalence of vape shops selling these types of products around military installations. There are over 20 within 5 miles of Fort Jackson alone. And this has an effect on the readiness of our soldiers as well. Ultimately, we seized in this particular case in the Midlands alone, I want to say this again, 30,000 pounds of product, whether just straight up weed, marijuana, whether pre-rolled cigarettes, whether it was edibles, whether it was dabs, whether it was oils, whether it was syrups. And the potency of these particular things are all very high. And all of these products that were seized, we had previously done an investigation and seized like products and had tested them, and they all tested hot. Okay? They all tested hot. So what we want to do today is be very clear. First of all, we wanted to make parents aware. We wanted to make citizens aware of what has been commonly and openly sold in stores all through our communities. It used to be that the master shops were everywhere, and now it's the vape shops. They're everywhere. And parents need to know what these products are and that not only are they illegal, but they're very intoxicating. Okay, we needed to send that message. We needed to advise people and make people aware that no matter what the package says, if you buy these products and use them, not only are they illegal, but you will test hot. You will test hot for THC. We need to make the store owners aware that no longer can they hide behind what the package says, that if you sell these products, they are illegal. And if you sell them to minors, that is particularly something that we are going to go after. And we want to say very strongly to those who distribute and traffic these products in South Carolina, you are on notice now that we will charge you with drug trafficking because that's what it is under our law, and that's what we charge some of the individuals in this case. Thank you.
So you've heard from some of our leadership at the state and federal level. Again, I want to thank, we had a couple sheriffs, elected sheriffs that are here, Max and Jay. You got our solicitor Brackett. Thank you for being here. But also we have partners in the General Assembly, and I just briefly wanted to give Representative Wooten, who's been a leader on this, former law enforcement officer himself, and I know there's some bills and things going on in the General Assembly. I was going to give you just a moment to address that and talk about that real quick.
Sure. Thank you, Jim. Thank you all, and I'll say first and foremost that if you look around this stage and you see all the people that are here, it starts at the Attorney General's office, because I've been around this game for a long time. I was a trooper back in the 90s, and I've not seen an Attorney General be as strong against this and against protecting our families as Alan Wilson has been. So not just kudos off to him and his agency and his folks.
All right, 10 a.m. here in the Live Impact studio. We're going to take another quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Live Impact News. We're heading straight back out to that press conference with the Attorney General in South Carolina and law enforcement, including Chester County officials from our area that helped out with this drug trafficking bust.
If you don't have the
Not off the top of my head.
3924.
Yeah, 3924.
H 3924 is the bill number, H 3924. If you want to write that down and go check it out, follow that. We would encourage y'all to report on it because it's important, and there's a lot of other issues we'll take up. Okay, we're going to conclude this. I want to conclude this, and then we'll go to questions if you have any. To people out there who are knowingly selling something that you believe is illegal, that you know to be illegal, we are coming for you. You heard it said earlier, we are coming for you. To the parents out there, just because you have something in a fluorescent rainbow packaging with a cartoon character on it, and it looks and sounds like it's, you know, a child edible or a child beverage, does not mean that it is. These things can be deadly. They can be harmful. It can ruin people's lives because you will pop hot for as if you smoke 2, 3, 4, 5 marijuana cigarettes. So this is real. This is very real. We are coming for you. You know, enough is enough. And we want to thank everyone for being up here today. None of this would have happened if it hadn't been for the men and women, boots on the ground, in multiple jurisdictions across the whole state of South Carolina, working together for the common good. And I want to, again, thank everyone for being here today. And to our friends in the media, your role is to tell the story, to educate people, because all the work that we're doing is no good if people don't know about it. So we appreciate you being here today, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. Mary Green, the first one out the gate.
Well, because you mentioned the legislation, so dovetailing off that, obviously, as has been mentioned many times, these products are blatantly illegal. Representative Wooten, your bill concerns products that are legal but don't have any regulation right now. For whoever wants to take this, could you explain how, even indirectly, how passing that legislation could still help y'all crack down on these bad actors who are already acting illegally?
I'll take the first stab at it, and if anyone wants to supplement me, feel free to do so. I talked about that earlier. You know, there's two kinds of things. We're talking about things that are actually illegal on their, I mean, not just, and they're facially illegal. And then there are products that there's a law that's been passed that there are things that are legal up to 0.3% THC by dry weight in whatever consumable product it is. There's a manufacturing process that when you when you think about 0.3% by dry weight, okay, when something is green and leafy and through the manufacturing process it gets infused into a sugary drink that's 12 or 16 or 24 ounces, or it's a bag of candy, right? All of a sudden you're consuming a lot more THC because it's synthetic. So you're consuming a lot more than you would as if you were, the dosage and duration are not controllable, and you could be consuming a lot more. So when you convert from a dry weight percentage to something else, that is where the law, there's a gap in the law, and that is being exploited by some, and others are unknowingly and unwittingly, you know, selling things that could have a higher than legal amount allowed. I don't know if anyone else wants to take a stab at it.
General, I'll just add one thing. I think that what we need right now, and that dry weight problem has existed because when the law was passed, they were only thinking about green plant material. And so it's Delta 9 only. Delta 8's illegal. Want to remind everybody of that. Delta 8 is illegal, but it's 0.3% Delta 9 by dry weight. So what happens is, particularly in these drinks, and I want to say this, I'm going to say this out right now, is that we had to leave a lot of the drinks behind, even though they have 3 or 4 joints of high-grav THC in them. And that's because the industry realized that they could formulate these drinks with enough sugars and salts so that when we dry it out and test it, even though it's very, very intoxicating, it still tests underneath that limit. And the problem with that is, the big problem with that is that when people smoke marijuana, it's almost an instantaneous effect, and they smoke till they get high and they stop. But when you drink one of those beverages, the effects are not instantaneous. Okay? And all of a sudden you've consumed 3 or 4 joints, and then it hits 30 or 40 minutes later and you're there for the ride. Okay, and that's where we're seeing a lot of the intoxicating effects that then lead to severe intoxicating effects that lead to DUI issues, that lead to trips to psychiatric wards. This dry weight problem that's been exploited by the industry has been fixed in recent federal legislation. However, it has a sunset provision that's not going to apply until November of 26. So we need strong legislation from the state legislature now. And the first thing I think we need to do is to criminalize and have stringent, strict penalties for the sale of any of these products to minors. And at least that would be a solid first step to make it to the sunset provision. And again, ultimately, there is a lot of legislative work, both on the federal and state level, that needs to be done to stop this from being the Wild West that it is. But that's what it's been here in South Carolina, is the Wild West. Those days are over.
General, real quick.
Yeah.
Just if you don't mind.
No, please, Chris.
I'm just not as, I'm a little bit more apprehensible at this point, or apprehensive at this point, to have faith in the federal government to regulate this for us. I don't think that we're going to see this many DEA agents come into South Carolina to enforce these laws. I think that the question was asked of me, that why do we need to continue with it as a state law with the federal government, if the federal government is going to do something about it in a year. I think that the federal government put that, personally, just by speaking to some of my colleagues in D.C., that they tried to put a little squeeze on the lemon, saying you need to get us some decent legislation so we can regulate this stuff the right way. We're not going to ban it. I don't think it's the intent to ban it federally, and even if it was, South Carolina needs to be able to enforce those laws. So we need to give these folks up here in the grind every day the ability to enforce those laws and give them some teeth, so you're not just out there beating the ground, working yourself to death, and then nothing happens to the people that are doing it. So that's the reason we're going to tackle it on the state perspective, as well as seeing what the federal government does. That's fine, but at the state level, we need to take care of it. So thank you, Joe.
Absolutely.
And I will say this. I've spoken, and I know Chief Keel and others up here have spoken to a lot of folks in the industry, the people who manufacture drinks and edibles. And what I've heard from a lot of people is that they do want this regulated. There are people out there who want to follow the law, who want to sell a safe, beverage or a safe consumable item to a person of age, and they want predictability, right? They want regulations that give them a legal pathway to engage in this industry. And so that is what we're counting on the civil side of this issue. We want the legislature to address some of the gaps and the loopholes in the law that have made it cloudy and murky for people to engage in this industry. But on the other side, we want stronger penalties, criminal penalties. We want to be able to go after these people. I mean, we're obviously going after them now. You've seen 40 charges of trafficking and possession with intent to distribute. And again, the evidence in this investigation, this is not people accidentally selling something that they didn't know was illegal or above the legal limit. This is people knowingly selling something that they knew was illegal, and in the specific facts of the operation will bear that out, either in a plea or in a trial if it comes to that. But again, there's two components to this, and the legislature needs to step up. And so the law enforcement is stepping up now, and we need the legislature to continue to help us. Any other questions?
What about the stores and the store owners? Any arrests there or closures?
The Guntrepreneur operation focused only on warehouses, and primarily on the warehouses that were supplying many of these various stores and that sort of thing. Throughout the state, many of the local partners conducted their own operations, and there were some stores that were hit at that point. But as far as our stats that we're here to talk about today, we're talking about the Guntrepreneur operation, which again was trying to hit the warehouses that supply many of these stores.
I was going to say, what about going into the future? Will you be going after stores also?
We're going after people who are knowingly violating the law.
I've got a couple of questions. How much cash was seized in the Midlands yesterday? What are your initial counts?
$2 million.
$2 million in cash?
Well, $2 million in assets.
How about cash?
I am told by the DEA that's pending official count.
And Creighton, what is your definition of hot? I haven't seen that in any legal.
Well, by hot, I mean that you will test positive on a drug test, and that it is intoxicating. And when I also say hot, I mean that when these products are marketed and they claim to be under the 0.3 limit, in fact, they test well above that. The products that we seized, we had already previously in various operations gotten those various products and tested them, and all of them, despite what their packaging said, tested well above that legal limit and well into very potent intoxicating effect levels of THC.
So John, to your point, hot meaning there are lots of people. I'm in the National Guard. You know, people have to take your analysis test, and if you take some gummies or you drink a drink, that's one of these things that we're flashing up here on the screens. If you're in the National Guard, if you're applying for a job at a solicitor's office or a law enforcement agency or a business where there's a drug test that you have to take, you would take that drug test, and that drug, you never smoked a joint, but you consumed one of these products, your test results would be as if you had smoked marijuana and multiple joints, and that's what he means by hot.
And to Jennifer, with just one question. I'm told by the lawyers who were at the numerous bond hearings in Richland County yesterday that you repeatedly asked for really high six-figure bonds for these people who were arrested, but the judge kept on lowering your request substantially. What do you say to that?
I say the judge did what he thought was appropriate, and after I asked for what I thought was appropriate.
Okay. Thank you.
So I was wondering, for those individuals that may take one of those edible drinks and they do test hot, not knowing that they were actually taking something that's as potent as smoking 3 joints, how does that play out in the court for them? You know, if they're taking a product that may appear to be under the limitations that it's supposed to be.
When I'm talking, this is an HR policy for businesses and agencies. In other words, they could lose a job opportunity is what I'm saying. It could ruin an opportunity for them. Whether if they're driving, you know, that would be another. You know, if they're pulled over by police officers, that's what you're talking about. I was just talking about in general.
Or if you're on probation.
If you're
probably shouldn't be using these if you're on probation.
It could have. There could be a legal effect to that.
And if you kill somebody while you're,
Yeah.
you can't claim that I didn't know. You intended to get intoxicated, and you are therefore responsible for the consequences of everything you do while intoxicated.
That's a great point. So in South Carolina, voluntary intoxication is not a defense. So if you drink one of these drinks I was talking about and get super high where you lose command of your faculties and commit a terrible crime, it's no defense that you were out of your mind on drugs or alcohol or any intoxicant. You're just as guilty.
Yeah, you think you're drinking a THC-infused drink, and it ends up having, you think it may have half a joint worth of effect on you, and it has 6 joints effect on you. You don't get to hide behind the fact, well, it was in a pretty little pink package. I didn't know any better. And to Solicitor Brackett's point, you could kill yourself or kill someone else.
And just to go back to that, I want to be clear. Look at these images, okay? And so when people try to claim, the people that are selling these try to claim, oh, I had no idea that this was illegal. Look at how these things are marketed. There's the warehouse right there. But when you see those cartoon characters with red eyes and a joint hanging out and a big marijuana leaf and the fruity, flavors and all of that intended to market, no one can, and with common sense, can look at these and the way they're marketed, the prices that they command, and the customers that are coming in to buy them and claim that they don't understand the purpose of these is to intoxicate and that they're illegal.
There's the example Creighton was talking about right up there. Yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah. A cartoon Obi-Wan Kenobi.
As an old Star Wars fan, that one kind of gets...
Not Alec Guinness Obi-Wan Kenobi, the cartoon, right?
That's the second.
Yeah.
Question for the Attorney General. There were media reports yesterday indicating that President Trump is interested in reclassifying marijuana as a Schedule III drug. I'm curious if you have thoughts about whether it is equivalent to prescription painkillers or whether it should be classified.
Look, I have always advocated for marijuana to be rescheduled. What the appropriate scheduling should be, I'm willing to have that conversation, but people are talking about legalizing it for medical or recreational purposes, but it's currently a Schedule I. If you look under the regulations for Schedule I, it says it's highly addictive and it has no medically recognized application. I mean, cocaine's a Schedule II. They're even saying it has I believe it's schedule. Yeah, cocaine has a medical application to it under the regulation, but marijuana under the law does not. So if people want to pass all these laws to study the health effects or the medical application effects, we're violating the very federal laws that govern what a scheduled narcotic is. So I think that in order to even have that conversation, you got to start with the rescheduling of it. What that reschedule should be. I'm open to that conversation, but it should be rescheduled if you're going to even have the conversation.
And the law is what the law is, And there's no doubt that there needs to be a lot of attention, as Representative Wooten has said, paid to this issue. But this is the wild, wild west, and that is an untenable thing, and that's why these officers up here are doing what we needed to do and stop these things from being openly sold in the stores.
Yeah, so you mentioned investigations statewide. Can you briefly talk about kind of the other biggest ones besides like Richland and Lexington counties, just where maybe other big storage units were or other products were seized from?
Well, so the operation that was coordinated by the Attorney General's Office State Grand Jury Division in working with SLED and the DEA, that was Midlands-based, okay? There was a lot of other agencies represented up here who, in coordination with that central operation on the warehouses that Creighton talked about, they conducted their independent operations on retail stores around the state of South Carolina. I would defer to those agencies, and I'm sure you can talk to them offline. Obviously, we're limited in what we can say. One thing I did not say, and I would like to be able to put this on the record, that everyone who has been charged in this case, they are all presumed innocent until and unless they're proved guilty in a court of law. So we do want to give them that presumption of innocence, but again, we're very confident at the robust nature of these investigations and what they've revealed, and we're going to continue our aggressive efforts in this area. We'll take one more question, and then...
I've been told that people were from Pakistan and India who were arrested largely. Is that true? I think Chief Gill said they were foreign nationals.
They are foreign nationals,
Are they
yes.
from India and Pakistan?
I can't confirm that, but they are foreign nationals.
Some of the individuals are naturalized citizens from other countries, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. And we'll let this be the last question. However, I would defer to other individuals up here who may want to talk to you on onesies and twosies, you know, on a case-by-case basis, obviously bearing in mind these are ongoing investigations. So, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, during this press conference, a group calling themselves the South Carolina Healthy Alternatives Association issued a press release in response to this presser, and they said that this week, multiple law-abiding business owners across the state were arrested and hit with unreasonable drug trafficking charges when their businesses were swarmed by law enforcement officers and their legal products and hard-earned dollars were seized. It adds that nothing in the state law bans or regulates the sale of hemp or hemp-derived products. I wanted to just get a response.
Well, I was not aware that they were intimately involved in the investigation. I mean, they're basically making a statement based on what they think they know, not what the evidence actually shows. That's fine. They can have that opinion, but the reality is this is not targeting law-abiding citizens. I mean, the evidence in this multiple operations shows that these people knowingly were selling products that they knew were illegal. They were trying to evade law enforcement from finding out. They were purposefully engaging in this kind of conduct. This just isn't people selling something that appears to be legal and they didn't know any better. So that is a statement based on what they think they know, not actually what is true.
General, you might also read it, the small print probably says paid for by the national marijuana industry.
Yeah. I mean, there are special interests out there who are going to just make blanket statements. Again, we don't have a political agenda on this. This is really a public health and, as mentioned earlier, a national security issue. And so, right now we're just trying to keep our community safe. We're not trying to target small mom and pop businesses. We're not trying to target retailers and people who are just trying to get by. We recognize that there are people out there trying to sell products, and they want to know that those products are legal. They don't want to sell an illegal product. They're going out of their way to do their due diligence. These people are not doing that. And again, we're not litigating this today. We're not doing an opening statement. We're not putting witnesses on a stand and doing a close. This is not a trial today. Okay? The people who make statements like that and the people who might criticize what we're doing here today, they don't have access to the evidence of the ongoing investigation and the very massive operation with over 40 law enforcement agencies working together. They don't have access to that. They haven't seen any of the evidence, and they're prejudging it without having even heard the evidence. And you haven't heard all the evidence today. We're just giving you what we can legally say at this time. Okay.
Were they packaged here, or were they delivered like that here?
Both. Yeah, a lot of these are warehouses that were distributed from all over the country, and some of it was manufactured and or packaged here.
But they had the packages, they filled them, sealed them, sent them off to the store.
Both.
Both. All right, so we have to call the press conference again. I would defer to others who are up here in their own individual capacity representing their agencies. I want to thank the Chief of SLED, Assistant Special Agent.
All right, that press conference there is wrapping up after a round of questions from reporters to South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson and also SLED officials, local law enforcement officials, including Chester County officials. So law enforcement from our area did help out in this major drug bust that they just announced in a few minutes ago. We're going to take a quick break, though. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Live Impact News. I'm Julie Kay here, and I want to bring you back first to some of this breaking news we brought you earlier. This is now the first live picture that we're getting out of Stewartville, Minnesota, after a critical incident at a high school, middle school parking lot here. Now, we don't know what that is yet. You're seeing in this picture, it's pretty empty, still some cars in the parking lot, but the school, of course, is shut down and the sheriff is blocking off the road. So the only information we have so far is that it's a quote-unquote critical incident that happened in the parking lot and that deputies are on scene investigating. The sheriff's office posted that to Facebook. They also say there's no current threat to students, staff, or the public, but they're not able to communicate anything else right now. Stewartville is kind of out there. It's closer to our Rochester area, so that is the affiliate you saw the camera from, but it is, yeah, a little bit south of Rochester. Our crews in Minneapolis are quite far. They are on the way now, though, to get some more information as well. But yeah, you can see this is a pretty rural area, so unusual for an incident like this to occur. Whatever this incident may be, still definitely a lot of questions remain. I know this just happened, though. Of course, they're an hour behind us, and so this happened really probably at the beginning of the school day. But as I mentioned, public schools in the area are closed for the day. In an email sent to parents, the district says it is due to an emergency. The affiliate here did, of course, reach out to both the school and the sheriff's office, but they were not able to give some more information. So we're hoping to get some of that information from officials in the next couple of hours. Now that we've got at least one camera on the scene, hoping that that comes a little bit more quickly now that we've got crews on the ground. We'll bring you back there when we get some more information. We've got something else happening live, though. Now we're going to head to Florida. This is a public meeting on school vaccinations, which of course has been a hot topic in general, but particularly in Florida. So this is out of Panama City. The Department of Health has scheduled the meeting to discuss changes to the existing rule regarding vaccine requirements for both public and private schools from preschool through 12th grade, as well as adult education classes. So this is a sweeping change that they're talking about. Let's take a listen in.
in the region, as the property lies within both the Northwest Florida Sentinel landscape and the Florida Wildlife Corridor.
Awesome. Any questions? All right, next one.
All right, item 4 is a consideration of delegation of authority to the Secretary of the Department of Environmental Protection or designee to amend, approve, and execute option agreements for conservation easements over approximately 11,000 acres within the Caloosahatchee Big Cypress corridor. This acquisition is located within the Big Cypress area of critical state concern and will strengthen essential wildlife connectivity as the property lies within the Florida Wildlife Corridor.
Thank you so much. And I know on this item, this will be probably one of the final ones we have in this that I'm tracking. There might be a couple more with the Caloosahatchee money.
There may be a few more, but this is,
Yeah.
yes.
When you look at the map of this, I mean, you look at it, it's actually going to buffer the entire Florida Panther National Wildlife Refuge, which is a great thing. How else do we ensure that we're, protecting our resources and, obviously endangered and threatened species? So I know y'all have worked really hard on this. I know you're working with the landowner, and it sounds like we're going to land the plane here, and it's a big deal.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
So that concludes the department's portion of the agenda. Item 5 will be presented by Portia Sapp with the Department of Agriculture's Division of Aquaculture.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen. I love the aquaculture.
But you didn't wear your Merry Fishmas.
No, so I got it at Bass Pro though, so it's technically, I guess, a freshwater fish, but
So
it says.
it looks like they're in the middle of some other departmental things that they have to get to first. And we do want to get back to this vaccination issue because it is, of course, a big talker and it's supposed to be really interesting. We're going to take a quick break and see if they get to it while we're gone. We'll be back in 2 minutes. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. So that Florida meeting, they're still talking about wildlife not getting to vaccines yet. So we'll keep an eye on that while we wait, because that is, again, supposed to be really, really interesting as a topic and could be a big change for Florida schools. Something else that we've been following, of course, is NASCAR settling this federal antitrust lawsuit. Not just big headlines because of NASCAR, but also because this relates to Michael Jordan's racing endeavors. Carlene, you're a little bit more well-versed in this topic than I am. So how would you explain what's happening?
Months of tension over financial transparency and charters, they have finally kind of settled agreement. It took about 8 days in court.
Wow.
For it to settle. I think it's everybody, from what I've read from all of the statements and from what Jordan said yesterday and 2311 co-owner Denny Hamlin, who also races, it's kind of a relief.
Okay. And I know it's still, we're not going to learn the amount of the settlement.
We still don't really know much about the settlement terms, and
Yeah.
we probably won't for a while. But it could. This is a good thing. If either side, Nick Carboni kind of said it. If either side won, it would have kind of changed too much about the thing.
Sure.
So it seems like they have a nice.
Peaceful resolution.
Peaceful resolution. It got a little testy and a little tense to get to this point.
Sure. But we're here.
But we got there.
Yeah.
We got there.
And I know this is anything time we're talking about court cases or antitrust laws, it gets pretty complicated.
Yes.
So our Vanessa Rufus got to interview an AP reporter who is
well versed in the
quite
motorsports,
well versed.
Yeah.
So let's get to that interview that can hopefully explain this topic a little bit more.
We just had this big news about that NASCAR settlement of the federal antitrust case, and this was in response to an antitrust lawsuit with 2 racing teams, including one that is co-owned by Michael Jordan. And so we've been diving into that throughout the evening. We do want to talk about the reaction first off. So Michael Jordan remarked on the settlement news shortly afterwards, just outside of court. And let's take a listen to that. We'll dive back in with some more insights from a reporter who's been covering this trial at length.
I mean, like 2 competitors, obviously we're trying to get as much done in each other's favor, but I think, collectively, and I don't think Jim was any opposite of me, was the fans has always been the best, solution to this whole process and to the sport itself. The only way that, and I've said this from day one, the only way this sport's going to grow is we have to find some synergy between the 2 entities, and I think we've gotten to that point. Unfortunately, it took 16 months to get here, but I think, level heads have got us to this point to where we can actually work together and grow this sport. I'm very proud about that, and I think Jim feels the same.
Jim? I do feel the same. We can get back to focusing on what we really love, and that's racing. We spend a lot of time, and then I'm not really focused on that so much as we need to be. So I feel like we made a very good decision together, and we have a big opportunity to continue growing the sport. We've got Denny Hamlin getting ready to go for the championship, and we need to focus on what we all love. What was the impetus that made it today and not earlier?
Level heads. In all honesty, when you get to the finish line, sometimes you have to think, not just for yourself, but you got to think about the sport as a whole. And I think both parties got to that point, and we realized that we could have an opportunity to sell this, and we dove in, and we actually did it. Unfortunately, it took us that long, but we got here. That's all that matters.
I mean, do you feel like it was worth it?
Well, I mean, both parties feel like it's worth it because we understand we had to work together. I mean, compromise in every negotiation is one of the toughest things that you can do. And I think that you can say that we both compromise on both agendas. And I think we both come to the conclusion that it's better for us.
There's so much family history wrapped up here, not just for you, Mr. France, but also for you, Mr. Jordan. Can you talk about just what it means to you from a legacy point of view?
Well, I grew up watching his father build this sport. I didn't want to have to tear it down. I don't think he wanted to be pulled down, but I think on the calmer circumstances, we actually voiced what our interest may have been, collectively. And at the end of the day, we reached some type of compromise. And to me, that's in every negotiation. That's in every agreement. And I'm very happy we stand on this step to move forward as opposed to moving separate.
What were the other terms of the
I think
settlement?
that's, guys, that's it. We're done. We're done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Let's go race.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go to Bubba Gray. Go to Daytona. Everybody show up at the tracks.
All right, so just a bit of that encounter with reporters after the settlement took place. We have Jenna Fryer, Associated Press reporter, joining us tonight here on Live Impact. Jenna, you covered this trial at length, 8 days altogether, but you heard Mr. Jordan alluding to in that chat with reporters shortly afterwards how this was months and months and months of waiting for this. Talk about, I guess, the settlement here, and what sort of implications do you think this would have on motorsport, anything at large with the sports world? What sort of impacts do you expect to see and/or do you think could happen here because of this?
Well, I believe that the settlement was necessary. I think that NASCAR was going to lose the case. It was not going well for them. It was not leaning in their favor at all. And the outcome could have been very bad for NASCAR and the France family if they'd seen it to a jury verdict. So the fact that they settled shows that the France family realized, hey, you know, we need to save our family business and protect this sport. What it's going to mean is what the teams wanted all along, which is number one, permanent charters. And we don't know yet the other terms that were agreed to in the settlement, but I believe that they're going to, that all teams, that even the ones who didn't sue, are going to receive a larger revenue stream, piece of the revenue stream, and they're going to work together to build a healthier, stronger sport. And Michael Jordan said from the very beginning that he wasn't doing this for just 23XI and Front Row Motorsports. He was doing this for all the teams, and ultimately what he achieved is going to be a victory for the 36 chartered teams in NASCAR.
No, I mean, we know that here in Charlotte, and there's so many other cities where I guess you would call it, you know, a NASCAR hub where there's so much interest and there's a lot of folks who are big fans. So we know that people are very much into the sport itself, but might not really dive into the weeds of, you know, the business operations. Could you explain for folks why we had 23XI Racing and Front Row calling for these charters to be made permanent? Is there a kind of a way that you could simplify it for folks who might not get the business nuances of this quite yet, but want to learn more about why this was something that these groups wanted?
Yeah, so NASCAR team, the structure in NASCAR, you know, NASCAR was founded in 1948, and it's been owned by the same family, the France family, who founded it, and they privately own the company. And it just has always been this system of, you know, we're in charge, we put on the show, you show up, and you figure out how to make the money to get to the racetrack, and if you don't make it next week, that's on you. And NASCAR had gotten to a point in popularity in the early 2000s where they really exploded. They were making a lot of money, and then it sort of cratered a little bit. And all of a sudden, these teams were bleeding money, and they were relying on outside sponsorship to stay in business. And they felt like this wasn't fair. We're showing up, we're doing all the work to put on your product, and we're not getting an equal piece of the pie. So in 2016, they developed what's called the charter system. It's very similar to the franchise model in other sports. The Carolina Panthers are a franchise. So when David Tepper decides, if he ever does, that he doesn't want to own the Panthers anymore, he has a product that he's got a franchise that he can sell for a large amount of money. The way that the charter system was set up was these were renewable every 7 years, and they were also revocable by NASCAR. So the teams argued in the negotiations for the 2025 agreement, hey, we're still bleeding money, we're still not getting enough of the revenue stream, we need better terms. And they had 4 core pillars that they wanted. One of the very important pillars that they wanted was that the charters become permanent, so that, and another word that you may hear that uses evergreen, and that's sort of a way to skirt around the word permanent that the France family so opposed. But they wanted them to become permanent so that they had an asset that could grow in equity, and when you have an interested buyer, you could charge a lot more money for it, because this was something that would never be taken away. Just the way that the Panthers continue to grow in value, the way that the Hornets continue to grow in value, they wanted that very much. And they wanted better terms on the other 3 items, the other 3 pillars that they were fighting for. But that key piece was that they wanted them permanent. NASCAR wouldn't budge on it. They gave the teams their final offer in September of 2024. It came in around 5 o'clock at night during the first weekend of the playoffs. They said, sign this by the end of the day, midnight, or you're going to lose your charters. 13 of the organizations, they felt they had no choice, that they were going to go out of business. This was the best deal that they were going to get. They signed it. Michael Jordan said, I'm not signing it. I'm not going to take the deal. And then Front Row Motorsports said that they didn't like the deal either, and they aligned with Michael Jordan. They felt that, let me roll the dice with Michael Jordan. He's a big player. He's got a lot of power. He's got a lot of money to fund this kind of fight. So tiny little Front Row Motorsports joined in on it. Those two teams since September of 2024 have been fighting this fight. We're probably looking at around $100 million in attorney fees between both sides, maybe more. And Michael Jordan went the distance on it. He wouldn't relent. And, every day of the 8 days was worse and worse and worse for NASCAR. And when they finally began to present their case on Wednesday, it became, through their first 3 witnesses, pretty obvious that they weren't trying to fight the antitrust claims. They were more trying to mitigate damages. They were more arguing, hey, we only have this much money. This is our bottom line. We can't give you the $700 million a year that the teams were asking for. This is why. And at the end of the day yesterday, I think NASCAR came to the conclusion we better come to an agreement before we let a jury decide our fate. Because if it had gone to a jury, the jury could have awarded the 2 teams, just the 2, a very large sum of money that the judge then could have tripled, and then it would have been up to the judge to unravel the monopoly. And it could have led to anything. He could have said the Francis had to sell NASCAR. He could have ordered the Francis to sell the tracks that they own. He could have blown up the charter system. It was a total gamble. And the Francis, they wanted to protect their family business. So we got to court on Thursday morning, this morning, and there was a flurry of activity, and all of a sudden it looks like they're talking about a settlement, because they were doing a sidebar in chambers. They were going into their private workrooms. They were meeting in the hallway. They went up to a conference room. It took about 2 hours. They wound up at a deal, and it's going to be a win for 36 cars and 15 organizations that are the bedrock of NASCAR.
We're going to hop in here and take a quick break, but we're going to come right back out to that with some more information on this NASCAR settlement right after this break. All right, welcome back. We're getting right back out to that interview that our Vanessa Rufus did with an AP reporter who's an expert in this NASCAR settlement that people have had a lot of questions about since we got the news yesterday.
Well, I'm glad you brought up, you touched on the fact that there was testimony and there was some evidence presented, and it sounded like this was, in fact, getting pretty spicy at some points during testimony. Was there anything that stuck out to you that was impactful testimony or something that just kind of went, whoa, didn't see that coming, and or was there anything that you felt was super compelling that potentially swayed that movement towards this settlement?
I don't think any surprises came out in court because of the discovery process. I think that those who paid attention and downloaded the court documents, we saw all the evidence that was going to come. So there were no real surprises, but I do think that it really when it just became very clear that this was going to be in NASCAR's favor. First, when Heather Gibbs testified, she's the daughter-in-law of Joe Gibbs, and she became co-owner of the team the day her husband died in 2022. Her husband died, his older brother, Coy Gibbs, died, his older brother, J.D. Gibbs, had died a few years earlier. Both of Joe Gibbs' sons had died. This was a family business, 32 years in NASCAR, and she wrote a really passionate letter, a really emotional, passionate letter to NASCAR and to the France family in May of this year, and she outlined why it was so important for charters to become permanent, that this protected their family legacy. And she testified that on the day that the final offer came in from NASCAR, they were just devastated. And she testified that she had to take her son to a baseball game in Chapel Hill, so she couldn't stay with Joe Gibbs and figure out what they were going to do. And she left him sitting alone in his office. She said it was dark. He was 84 years old. She could hear his blood sugar monitors going off, and he was on the phone with Jim France pleading, saying, Jim, you can't do this to us. You can't do this to us. And from that point in the trial, everything that came after it was just blow after blow after blow to NASCAR. When Jim France was on the stand on Wednesday, they presented 4 letters. One was from Rick Hendrick, one was from Roger Penske, one was from Joe Gibbs, and the 4th one was from Jack Roush. And all 4 letters pleaded with Jim France, we need this. We can't stay in business without this. You've got to help us. You've got to work with us. We've got to come to an agreement. And Jim France was unmoved by the 4 letters and admitted on the stand that he considered all 4 of those men to be close personal friends. So if his close personal friends were not going to sway him, that really wasn't presenting a great look for the France family. You've got this dichotomy of the France family built this from scratch. They've provided this playground, this business for everyone to earn a livelihood, to do what they want to do, to compete in the sport that they love. They've spent all this money. They do make the show go round. So in some regards, it is their right to run their business the way that they want to run their business. But at the same time, the teams have got to be financially stable. They've got to be sustainable. Since the 2016 charter agreement, since this system started in 2016, 11 of those original teams that signed charters are out of business. So if you want Richard Childress to stay in business, if you want Joe Gibbs to be able to have something to honor his family legacy, and the same for Roger Penske and the same for Rick Hendrick, you've got to make a fair business model. And that's what ultimately was agreed upon at the end of the trial when this flurry of activity happened and NASCAR relented and offered a true settlement offer.
Now, I know nobody has a crystal ball here, and it would be really tough to say. I totally understand this. But so they got these permanent charters that they were fighting for. Does everyone just go on happy family, cordial business relations, or do you foresee, cracks in the relationship going forward, or, feelings that might be lingering afterwards?
you know, all of the above, you know, even though this was not introduced in court, the discovery process showed internal NASCAR communications that did not make NASCAR leadership look very good. In one of them, NASCAR Commissioner Steve Phelps called Richard Childress a redneck who needed to be taken out back and flogged. Childress testified. It was very fiery testimony. He was very angry. Even though the text messages did not come up in court, the public knows that they exist. And, you know, we had a day last week where there was a fan outside court holding a sign that said, NASCAR, your fans deserve better. You know, the court of public opinion was seeing this very ugly side of NASCAR and this hard line that the France family took. And they you know, I think people are wondering, are the France family capable of continuing to run this? Should Steve Phelps keep his job? Johnny Morris, the founder and owner of Bass Pro Shops, released a letter Wednesday night calling for Steve Phelps to be removed from his position because he's a sponsor of Richard Childress Racing. He takes offense to the things that Steve Phelps said about Richard Childress. So you have these hurt feelings on one hand. On the other hand, you have 13 organizations that didn't sue who are now wondering, well, what sort of payout did 2311 and Front Row Motorsports get in this settlement? Why don't we get any money in the settlement? And I don't know if there's merit to that or not. You had an economist testify that the France family shorted all 36 charter teams over $1 billion in the last 4 years. Now these teams may say, well, we deserve a stake. I don't know if that's true. Michael Jordan and Bob Jenkins are the only two who fought the fight. The war's over now. So do you pay the other teams retroactively? So it's going to be interesting to see what the other teams ask for, if they're content. At the end of the day, though, they're going to get an improved charter model from the one that they signed in September of 24 because of what Michael Jordan and Bob Jenkins did.
Well, Jenna, we really appreciate all your insights. Is there anything we did not cover that you feel like is a big takeaway folks should know? I know we touched on a lot over the last several minutes.
I think that the one thing is that everybody involved in this case, everybody who testified, they love NASCAR. They want to be part of NASCAR. The France family loves NASCAR. The teams love NASCAR. They just wanted a fair deal. Nobody wanted to tear the sport down. They just wanted to make a deal that everybody could live. And they said that on the steps outside the courthouse. They're ready to get to February and go racing again.
And so they shall, with different structure in place. So, Jenna, thank you.
A better structure. You're very welcome.
We appreciate all your insights. Once again, Jenna Fryer with Associated Press, putting together a very detailed,
really interesting interview there with our Vanessa Rufus. We're going to take another quick break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back. It is me and Carlene here in the Live Impact Studio. Got a couple minutes left, and we wanted to show you something nice to leave you off on before our next newscast. Look at all these people in Beach Mountain.
Look at all of them going.
Enjoying the snow on a
Bundling
Friday.
up. You know, they're bright and early.
Looks chilly.
It's cold. It's
Yeah.
downright cold up there. But here's the thing. We are not mountain people. So this is normal for mountain people.
This is good.
We are metro people. So we're like, it's cold. And they're like, it's normal.
And cold is good, I guess, if you're going skiing
Right.
and snowboarding. That's what you want.
Right.
It's beautiful, though. I mean, look at all that. It must be nice to get out there and on that fresh snow.
I know I've asked you, do you ski or snowboard?
No, and I think that's for the best. I not only am I a city person, I'm also uncoordinated.
So you'll be sitting here and we can watch it. It's like a
Yeah,
snow globe.
I am enjoying them enjoying it. I am also enjoying sitting down. I think that's safer for everyone involved.
Yeah.
So I'm not familiar with, I've actually never even been up to like a ski resort or anything like that. My family spends a lot of time in Nashville.
Okay.
And so I've been up in the
Near.
mountains,
Right.
not near Beach Mountain in particular, but up in the mountains quite a bit. And I think the more I've seen, the more I know it's not.
It's not for you.
It's not
That's
safe
okay.
for
It doesn't
everyone
have to be
involved.
For you, it's for these lovely people getting in their ski snowboarding time. Good for y'all.
But it is gonna, we talked to Chris earlier. It's gonna warm up a little bit this weekend for Saturday.
He gave Saturday a gold medal.
Gold medal on Saturday, and it's gonna cool right back down.
Yeah.
17 degrees on early Monday morning. So if you're gonna go outside this weekend for
Do it
any
Saturday.
reason, Saturday's probably the day.
And bundle up. Wear a coat.
Wear some gloves. I'm going tonight to the